It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side here with Kat and Paul. Be sure to check out our merch store on thefinside.threadless.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and on Spotify. It is a short week. The Dolphins play the Texans on Thursday Night Football. Texans are coming off a 4-game win streak, and so we're really running up an escalator this week to get ready for this. We're joined by Matt Weston from the Battle Red blog. He's been kind enough to join us to give some insight from the Houston Texans sideline. You can follow his website, Battle Red blog, as well as his Twitter handle, MBW987 on Twitter. He's also coming out with a preview of this game, 6 things to watch for on the Battle Red blog. So, Matt, the Texans have won 4 in a row, and after an 0-3 start, you turn around a month later, and just like that, they're first place in the AFC South following a 20-7 win over the Jaguars for their 4th straight win. What is the feeling in Houston right now as this team projects for the rest of the season?
I can't really speak for everybody, but for me, I mean, the first 3 weeks, they always lose to New England. They lost to the Giants. They lost to Tennessee whenever Marcus Mariota was benched for or was injured and Blaine Gabbert started, and lost a 9-6 game to them. And it just seems so long ago. But really what happened was they lost 2 one-possession games to 2 bad teams, and they won 3 one-possession games in a row against 2 bad teams in Buffalo. And, man, it all seems so long ago. They beat Buffalo, and they also beat Dallas, who's mediocre, and they won their first game against the Colts. And really all that kind of changed was that they won close games that they were previously losing. Last week was the first time they actually had, a dominant win. And they played Jacksonville's team that once they go behind is very bad. And also, Blake Bortles fumbled the ball twice while scrambling, and that set up 10 points for Houston. That was really all they needed. And Jacksonville, they have 0 downfield threats. They're on their 3rd left tackle. Without Fournette, they don't have running backs that can carry the offense. And Bortles is a guy who can elevate the guys around him. And so whenever Houston plays teams that are run heavy, like Jacksonville, like Buffalo, like Dallas, they're in a really good spot because they can stop the run. They don't have to worry about teams spreading them out, attacking their secondary, and they can win games like 20-10, 23-10, and those sorts of things. And so I don't really think the performance has changed all that much. I just think that they've been playing teams that kind of match up better, and they've won close games.
Sure. So let's get to those matchups here. First, Deshaun Watson absolutely lit the world on fire last year, quarterback. Not going to say he's been a disappointment this year. You may have more insight on that than me, but because last year's numbers were pretty hard to replicate. This year, 1,937 yards passing, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, quarterback rating of 89.9. What is the feeling on him this year?
Yeah, last year he had a touchdown rate of 9.7%. It was the highest touchdown rate since Peyton Manning whenever he played for the Broncos that first year when he was spectacular. And only him and Peyton Manning, Carson Wentz have had touchdown rates greater than 9%, going back to 1990. Before that, you have to go all the way back to Ken Stabler for a quarterback with a 9% touchdown rate. And only, I think it was 8 quarterbacks have had touchdown rates greater than 8% with a minimum of 150 throws. So a lot of that touchdown stuff is just kind of regressions to the mean. What happened last year wasn't going to happen again this year. I think Watson's been good considering what he's been dealing with. Bill O'Brien did a really bad job scheming the offense to start the year off. He ran a really super cool offense last year with a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of options, a lot of zone reads, a lot of interesting play action passes built off those that they used to throw the ball downfield, and to Will Fuller especially. And this year they started off not with that offense. It was a lot of inside zone, 3rd down shotgun, incompletion punts. And then they changed things up against Indianapolis and scored 35 points and won a close game in overtime. But it was the first time they actually used that offense. And since that's happened, Watson played the Bills. He had his lung partially collapsed. He cracked some ribs. This last week, Jacksonville, he couldn't even fly there. He had to take a bus because the air pressure would have, could possibly cause infections to his upper respiratory system. So he wasn't able to even out to Jacksonville. And right now, after all the hits he's taken, they can't run that cool offense. They can't really use him as a runner at all anymore, just because he's kind of broken. He's all hurt and in pain the way he is at the moment. And so with the offensive line, as bad as it's probably been the worst pass blocking line in football, depending on how you feel about Arizona, depending on how you feel about New York. And with offensive line issues they've had and the scheme issues that Bill O'Brien's kind of put him in to start the year off, I think Watson's been, admirable. He's been confident. He's played well. Really the only big issue he's had is the amount of turnovers he's had. But everything other than that, he's been very good. And I think the plan for Houston right now is just run the ball a lot, control the ball, play good defense, and wait for him to slowly get back to health.
Right, and what a lot of Dolphins fans are thinking too is many people, myself included, and I think Paul too, were extremely upset when Lamar Miller left a couple of years ago, really over $1 million or $2 million difference in where they were. I know Lamar Miller had a 100-yard game last week for the Texans. And what is the sense with Lamar Miller right now running the football and being that bell cow?
Well, how much did he weigh when he played in Miami? Like, he was like a 205-pound player, right?
He was listed at like 220, but I don't believe that for a second. I mean, I had a hard time believing he was 205 when he was here.
Yeah, because I think what happened with Lamar Miller is they turned him from like getting 15 carries a game or 15 touches a game, being 25 touches a game, and they bolt him up. And he's not like as dynamic and explosive as a player that he was in Miami. Is one of the problems. The other problem is they don't run the outside zone as often as they should. Houston's had a lot of offensive line changes. They've kind of done a lot of different scheme changes, and for whatever reason, they haven't been using that play as often as they probably should consider the offensive line that they have. And also, Lamar Miller's a great one cut and go runner. You don't want him running between the tackles a lot. You don't want him, as a vertical runner. You want him to be more lateral. You want him to get the ball in space more often. And Houston's just done a bad job doing that with him. And I also think that they had him, gain weight and get stronger just so he could take on that load of, 25, 30 touches a game compared to the 15 or so he got in Miami. But other than that, he's fine. He's been mediocre in Houston. Last week was the best game he's had since like week 16 against the Colts going back to 2016. Last year, he had trouble reaching 4 yards to carry. I just think it's a bad circumstance for him. It's a bad setting for him. And it really wasn't that good of a mesh of, scheme and also the type of player he is. And I don't think he'll probably be here after this year. And the whole thing is kind of frustrating because he was a lot of fun watching Miami. He was, dynamite there.
Looking at the wide receiver unit here, obviously DeAndre Hopkins is one of those elite receivers, somebody you just hope to contain throughout a game. And Will Fuller's that second fiddle, catching more passes this year for him. It seems like the Texans have always struggled to find that third option. I mean, Kiki Kute, I'm hoping I'm saying that name right. Looks like he's going to be out for this game. I know they were experimenting with Braxton Miller a little while ago, and they cut him. I think he's with the Eagles practice squad now. C.J. Fedorowicz at tight end had a career-ending injury. They've just never seemed to get that third option here. Who do you think is going to be that third option in this game, other than Hopkins and Fuller?
I don't think one even exists. I think the third option is going to be Lamar Miller dump offs, screen passes. Ryan Griffin was out last week, but he's a bad tight end. He's probably like the 32nd best tight end in football. He can't block. He can't beat man coverage. He's really good at catching like 4-yard passes in the flat and then getting open, the seam against cover 3. But Jordan Akins and Jordan Thomas are the two rookie tight ends that both have played pretty well this year. I would expect for them to get more looks. And the other thing they did last week's game was they put Tyler Ervin, which is the team's third running back. He's their punt returner. He's their kick returner too. He played a little bit slot receiver. He had one catch where he just kind of sat in the middle of zone coverage and made a catch. But yeah, Kiki Cutie's the new slot receiver. He's really good because especially with Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins on the outside, you have safeties who are kind of in the shade and roll over to the sideline. And the middle of the field is always open for Houston, just have the players who can take advantage of it. But Cutie's been the one guy who can actually beat man coverage at the slot position. And in addition to that, too, he's really fast, and so they can use him in jet sweeps. They can use him in screens. And without him, it's a big loss for Houston because he was the first slot receiver I think they really have ever had in franchise history.
Take us on a tour of the defense here, Matt. They got J.J. Watt back, and he's already got 7 sacks in 7 games. Jadeveon Clowney had a big game last week with 2 sacks as well. At the beginning of the year, I was kind of looking at the Texans from afar thinking, like, what the hell's going on? They got Watt back. They got Tyrann Mathieu, Honey Badger, in the offseason to play free safety. But I look at the points allowed, 27 to New England, 20 to Tennessee, 27 to the Giants, 34 to the Colts. But it seems like they've really picked it up in the last couple of weeks. 16 points allowed to the Cowboys, 13 to the Bills, 7 to the Jaguars. Has it been a significant turnaround the last couple of weeks, or has it just been really the opponents they faced?
Yeah, I think it's more the opponents they face. New England always plays Houston, great. Houston's never going to beat New England. And until it happens, I don't think it's ever going to happen. That Tennessee game, there was a fake punt that kind of, inflated that score a little bit. Against the Giants, the pass rush wasn't good yet. Watt was the only source of pass rush. Jadeveon Clowney still hadn't fully knocked the rust off. And they weren't getting any interior pressure with blitzes at all. And they were playing 8 yards off the field. And Eli Manning had an 8% completion percentage in that game just by throwing crossing routes that were, wide open because the cornerbacks were playing 9 yards off the line. But, yeah, the last 4 weeks they've gone up against teams that are predominantly run-heavy. Houston has the second-best run defense in football by DVOA. Jadeveon Clowney is pretty much unblockable. Watt's, so good at freelancing and using that swim to make tackles for a loss. Zach Cunningham has been a great, chasing tackler because of what he has in front of him. It's hard for offensive lines to, 1, get vertical movement, and 2, be able to peel off quick enough to get to Cunningham. And Arjun McKinney's, great at standing up offensive guards and centers and finding the football. And so teams just can't run on them at all whatsoever. And then when you take that away, you get longer third downs. And with Jadeveon Clowney actually rushing the passer well, and with Romeo Crennel switching to use him more as a stand-up inside blitzer at times to create interior rush has been super beneficial. And Watt he's 100% back, and he's doing things like beating 3 blocks to sack the quarterback too. But I think mainly whenever they play teams that are predominantly run-heavy or have to throw a lot of short, quick passes to survive, where Houston can play, shorter zone coverages and not have to worry about getting beat deep. The defense is going to be great. And so this week against Miami with Osweiler as the quarterback, it's a lot of swing passes, it's a lot of screens, it's a lot of drags and slants and those sorts of routes. Without the threat of the deep ball at all, Houston should have a really good defensive game this week because they can play short zones and they can stop the run and rush the passer.
So what do you think, in addition to that there, Matt, what do you think the Texans need to do to win on Thursday night?
I think the biggest thing is to tackle well whenever they do make those throws. I don't know if Albert Wilson's going to be playing this weekend or not, but he's a guy that you have to tackle immediately. Danny Amendola doesn't have the speed, but he's a good short route runner, and he's another guy who you have to tackle right away. And the same thing with Kenny Stills as well too. I think if Stills is able to catch 1 or 2 deep passes whenever Houston goes from single safety sets, and Osweiler, that his problem is whenever he sees 2 safeties, he doesn't want to throw downfield at all. I watched it happen for an entire year, and everything became 4-yard slants, 4-yard kind of swing passes in the flats that were quickly extinguished. And so whenever he has those safety matchups and he can throw 1 or 2 downfield passes, that might be all that's required with an offense that can't really fully function because of the injuries to Watson and the pass protection issues that they've had before. But if Houston stops the run, if they tackle well, if they're able to play the kind of short zones, I think they'll be fine. The thing is, they can't allow, Osweiler to make, 2 or 3 deep downfield passes at all.
Well, I've got real good news for you too, Matt. Albert Wilson is going to be out this game, and Kenny Stills is going to be out this game too. So
really?
a lot of big things. Also, Amendola and Mike Gesicki, as we're recording this, did not practice either. So right now we're starting to think who the hell is going to line up at receiver throughout the week. But thank you for that breakdown of the Texans roster. So the question all of our listeners want to know, I believe the Texans right now are favored by 6.5 points. What is your prediction for this Thursday night?
6.5 is way too high because Houston can't really beat by about only 1 score. They beat Jacksonville by that mark last week, but a lot of it had to do with the Bortles turnovers. So as long as Oswald doesn't turn the ball over, which he's prone to do. I think that year in Houston he had 12 interceptions or 16 interceptions. And so as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, Houston's going to have trouble winning by more than 7 points. I think Houston wins, but I think it's going to be a game where they stop the run. They, do just enough 2 or 3 times, and they score, 17 points or 20 points, and they win like 2013 or 2016 or 2010, something along those lines.
Well, there it is. And one last question. Do you guys miss Brock Osweiler yet?
No, but I not at all, but it's not like whenever he was playing here, I was super mad because as bad as he was, you waited 3 years for a quarterback, just all that money to get one, and he was terrible. And now it's like it's so long ago, and that whole bad season happened. And I wish the best for him. It took a second-round pick to get rid of him, and that whole sort of thing. But I don't miss watching him play. It was a wasted year having to watch him average 4 yards a pass attempt.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been a little bit surprised by how he's played in these last 2 games, but there's a feeling with a lot of us that eventually he's going to revert back to that type of player too. So very good matchup here coming up on Thursday night. We're joined here by Matt Weston from the Battle Red blog. You can follow him at MBW987 on Twitter for a lot of good Texans information. You can also check out his article, The 6 Keys. What's the name of the article, Matt?
6 things to watch for.
6 things to watch for on the Battle Red blog. And, Matt, if we can return the favor, we would certainly love to do that, too, if your fan base is looking for some additional Dolphins insight as well. Thanks for joining us here tonight.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. And that'll do it for a breakdown of the Texans sideline with Matt Weston. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and on Spotify. Check out our merch store, on-the-finside.threadless.com. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side or the right side, then it must be the fin side. Listen, Dolphins fans across the land all tuning in to see what Brian Cat and Paul about to do.